Well, good afternoon. Today is August 4th, 2025. This is Rowan County, North Carolina County Commission meeting, our 3 o'clock session. We are grateful that you have chosen to join with us today, and we hope you find your time spent here very profitable. We begin our meetings as we do every time. A couple of things. We're going to have our chaplain will come forward. He's going to provide for us what's called a solemnizing prayer. We always explain what this is. This is not for you. You can listen in. We hope you will. There's purpose for this, and actually you'll find that elected officials here as a group, we admit that we don't have all the answers. So instead we ask for wisdom as we obtain information, wisdom to make the best choices for this community. And so we'll have them come to do that. Following that, we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioners, if you'll join me, we'll get started.
Commissioners, let's pray. Lord, we're blessed to be here today. We thank for our county commissioners, dear Lord. We thank for the work they do, dear Lord, and thank you for all the time they spent, Lord, even preparing for this meeting today. Pray you give them the knowledge and the wisdom they need, Lord, and the work they do. Encourage them, strengthen them in Jesus' name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are a little short-handed tonight. Got a couple of commissioners out with the sniffles, and but we also wanted to welcome for the first time at the behind the dais our assistant county attorney. Yes, we have an assistant county attorney. A lot going on in Rowan County, and the fact is that having just one of those folks doing that is becoming more and more difficult. So Eli Harden is our new assistant. He just started with us, and so we're grateful you're here with us. And I was going to say don't mess up, but yeah. Anyway, welcome. We're grateful you're here, and we look forward to a good working relationship with you. So thanks for being here. Do you want to tell us anything about yourself? I didn't prepare you for that, but you're not that interested. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all. All right, well, welcome, and it's good to have you here. All right, I don't think we have any changes to the agenda. Oh, we do. Why don't you tell us what our changes are? Oh, agenda additions. We do. All right, we are going to add to the consent agenda item N, which will be to schedule a public hearing on August 18th at our next meeting for Project Granite. Project Granite, that'll be consent item N. And then there's a budget amendment, 02-55 is being added to consent item B, which is our budget amendment item. And then consent item M, which is STBGP grant. More materials have been provided for that for the commissioners, and of course those will be online as well. All right, so those are the adjustments I have. Do we have a motion to add those to the agenda?
So move.
And a second? Second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and then do we have a motion then to approve the agenda as amended? So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. All right. All right, do we have any? All right, motion to approve then the consent agenda.
So move.
All right, in a second? Second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're going to work hard tonight, Dean.
That's right.
All right. All right. Do we have? All right, for public comment, we have, you pronounce it Kemp? Mr. Kemp, welcome back. Good to see you. Come on forward, and we're glad you're here.
Just had a few things today. And again, y'all know why I come. Y'all know what my concerns are. And first of all, too, I want to tell you, I appreciate the job y'all been doing. I know that the old saying is your plate's full. I think y'all's bucket's full with everything y'all got going on right now and trying to do things here in the county. But my concern is the veterans, seniors, disabled, our young people. I just had a few notes I looked up and just wanted to bring it to you this afternoon. Supposedly, the population in Wayne County is over 151,000 now, that the county is growing. There are 23,443 individuals living in or below poverty in Rowan County. That's 16.4% of the population that's living under poverty. And what's that mean? That means they don't make enough money to make a good living off of, to take care of their bills and take care of their families and their children, be able to have a home and a car, and to support themselves. There are 2,458 individuals that are over 65 years of age that are living below the poverty level also. That's 11% of our population. Just today I was in a man's house and talking with him. He's just received his tax statement not long ago. He said it's still laying on the kitchen table. It was $2,400 for his property taxes. And he says, right now, I've told my wife, I don't know how we're going to pay it. So there's people still struggling. And the veteran population here in our county is at 7% right now. We have veterans from World War II here in the county, 127 of them. We've got people here that fought in the Korean War, it's 406. Vietnam, 3,279. The Gulf War in 1990 at 2,024. The Gulf War in 2001 was 1,466. And you know what that means, folks? That means that flag that we just pledged allegiance to is flying, because we have veterans and we have people that care. And again, I'd like to see us be able to care more about our veterans, our seniors, disabled, our young folks, that they have a place to get a job to when they get out of school. Some of these notes here that I got came from the Second Harvest Food Bank. And the Second Harvest Food Bank is saying in 23-24, the food bank distributed over 88 million pounds of food and household items throughout the 24 county services that we have here. Some of those services are the food bank, Rowan County Helping Ministry, Salvation Army, CMC in Kannapolis, Nazareth Children's Home, Ruffy's Home Senior Center, Grateful Heart, and Southside Community. What does that mean to those people that are living in poverty? That means they got to go to a place that they can go to help supply some food for their family. People that have worked hard and they're trying to make a living out of it, just to make it go. The food bank supports 28 programs here in Rowan County. I thank God for the food bank. I told y'all one time over there in a little book right before Revelations about that verse that said, and if some having compassion makes a difference. I thank God these folks have some compassion. But my goal again, folks, is to keep going forward, that somebody will hear me. And Mr. Ebbs, I know about a year and a half ago or so, you made a comment here in the room, and it's got to be public knowledge, that I'd been calling some of our representatives, some of the people in Raleigh, and I'm back on that journey again. I'm reaching out to some folks. I got some more things in plan that I want to try to do, and I'd really love to see you folks get on board and try to help. I really would. I know that you're saying that we got to go to Raleigh to get this done. Why don't we go to Raleigh together? Why don't we all reach out to them? How come we don't send the county a letter letting them know that we got people here in our county need help and there needs to be some changes made? Somebody's got to take a step to make it work. I'd like to see you folks, let's make a step. I'm going to continue in the battle. And like I say, I'm not alone. I'm just the only one that's here tonight. But anyway, I appreciate y'all's time. Mr. Ebbs, I went over to 3 minutes. I apologize.
All right, anything for you, Mr. Kemp.
Y'all have a good evening.
Hey, why don't you call me? Let's have lunch. I'll let you treat me to lunch.
That'll be fine.
All right.
We'll go to a local choke and puke.
That'll be fine. All right. Good to see you again. All right. Probably not doing this in the right order. I've not seen one of these before. We've got an agenda announcement form, and so just going to read College Night Out is coming up in Salisbury. College Night Out, it's a free event where the city of Salisbury welcomes students from Livingstone, Hood, Theological Seminary, Catawba, and Rowan Cabarrus Community College to explore and connect with the downtown community. The event offers fun activities, networking opportunities between institutions, and valuable community resources for a memorable night out. That'll be August 28th, 2025 at 5 p.m., and it's right over here, catty-cornered us, Bell Tower Green. Normally, they'll have me come out and welcome kids from all over the country and the world. I think Daniel's going this year. So, yeah, we appreciate Daniel stepping in and doing that. And so if you're inclined to go out there and see what's going on in our college community, we are a college town, then certainly do that. So thank you. All right, we're going to move into our agenda now. Let's see, we'll have a legislative hearing for Z05-25. Ed, welcome. Good to see you.
Good afternoon. Good to be here. Okay, so as the chair mentioned before my arrival here, this is a legislative hearing to consider a map amendment that would potentially apply the agriculture overlay to portions of the Miller family and the Patterson farms. And I will summarize the staff report that you have in your packet. If you've got any questions, please stop me along the way. I will be brief as well. A little background on the evolution of the agriculture overlay. In 2023, the Tourism Authority petitioned the county to consider amending or updating its zoning ordinance to essentially resolve some questions as to what agritourism activities were subject to local zoning rules. And so the Planning Board considered the item and came up with a proposal that was adopted by the board in May of 2023. And the requirements are generally these things. Number one, it's got to be in an RA district. The AO permits uses that are closely related to agriculture, production, and farming, but also have some retail and recreation-oriented uses that have some correlation to farming or its rural setting. There are some additional AO uses that are subject to special requirements, and we'll talk a little bit about those later. But the big thing is that these are approved administratively. If the agriculture overlay is applied, the applicant is dealing with staff. There's no public hearings, no special use permits or things of that nature. So the first farm is the Miller family farm. It's located at the intersection here of Weaver Road and Miller Road, just north of China Grove. The Miller family operates on about 600 acres of owned and rented lands. They primarily are involved in row crop and vegetable production. They have 8 full-time and 4 part-time employees. If you've traveled Miller Road, you know that they have a little country store that's been there for a number of years that sells their farm products. During October and September, leading into October, they have a Maze of Terror Halloween-themed trail that's sought temporary use permits from this board in the past. If this AO is granted, it will eliminate that requirement for their amusement-themed portion of that event. They've got it's not necessarily a ride, but it's in an amusement that requires annual inspection by the state, and so they submit that paperwork to us to accompany their permit application to the board. That particular element doesn't necessarily get removed. It's just that they don't have to go through the petition to the board for the temporary use permit. We're going to focus here on 4 parcels that they own that are on tax map 221. This quadrant of Weaver and Miller Road accounts for about 225 acres that they have in farm use or present use value. You see the types of use that they have here. I think what's important relative to this request is that each one of these parcels are enrolled in the Voluntary Agriculture District Program. They're all zoned RA. There's no watershed limitation or floodplain impacts. I mentioned this previously. They do have a little country store on this parcel here, the intersection of Weaver and Miller Roads. They're not applying for the entire 224 acres. They're actually looking at 141 acres or portions of those properties. I think it's important to note that 70% of what they're putting into the AO is considered a prime soil from the soil standards that we have. We're to transition to Patterson Farms. I think most people are familiar with that name for a number of different reasons, but they have 13 acres of farmland, 1,300 acres of farmland in Rowan County. That's a little over 2 square miles, scattered throughout western Rowan County. 550 of it is in fruits and vegetable production. They have 25 full-time employees and over 300 seasonal employees. This and the other this is what we would call in term of working farm. They've got a farmer's market that sells their products here on Caldwell Road, and you're probably familiar with that. Also, they have agritourism events at this site, tours, pick-your-own parties, and things of that nature. Similarly, we looked at what they're requesting. I think this accounts for about 136 acres of their operation. These are all zone RA. Interestingly, though, these tracts are not in the Voluntary Agriculture District program. They are in production, but they've made up for it with others. They've got 550 other acres that are currently enrolled in the Voluntary Ag program. Also, and I mentioned this before, on Caldwell Road, they have the country store. It's located in the watershed area, but it has no floodplain impact. They have a smaller request for their AO consideration. It accounts for 117 acres. We similarly did a thing to look at what's considered prime soils. About 65% of this is what we would consider a prime soil. Looking at the plan conformity, we're going to talk about 4 things that we typically do as it relates to rezoning requests. The Miller Family Farm is shown in the red star. That is in Area 2. Patterson Farm is in Area 1, denoted by the black star there. I've actually got the plan recommendations flip-flopped, and it kind of would make sense. Area 1 is the more rural area. The requirement there, or the recommendation, is that it's low-density residential, and Area 2 would be medium-density residential. So in the graphic here on the screen, I've got them reversed. Any non-residential uses that occur in either of these plan zones would be directed toward the community and the regional nodes, and they're going to be shown as these circles on the map. The rural area recommendations, which both of them would apply specifically to their request, and it lends itself to this request, is to promote and expand the voluntary ag district program to help minimize incompatible land uses next to farming operations, and also to encourage agribusiness and natural resources related industries. This goes hand in hand with what the AO text was designed to do. We also have the Rowan County Working Ag Plan that was adopted by this board in February 23. One of the recommendations is there to support measures to protect and promote working forest and farmland in Rowan County. We talked a little bit about purpose and intent, but I'm going to highlight 3 or 4 things that come out of the text that's in the zoning ordinance. Why do we have an AO district? It's to encourage the continued vitality of active farming operations, preserve viable ag areas. It may be applied to all or portions of working farmland used extensively for agriculture production. You saw in both the graphics for the Miller family as well as the Patterson farms that they're applying it to portions of those tracts, not the entire tract, but significant portions of their working farmland. And it's really intended to supplement their farming and agritourism activities with retail trade and services to support their overall farm operation. The third item we look at is compatibility of uses. When comparing the agriculture overlay to the RA zoning district, you see P in the RA column, which stands for permitted, SR is special requirement, or S is special use. When you transition over to the AO, you note that most of those become permitted. It not only supplements, but it really expands the potential operations they can have. And I mentioned it earlier that we approve these or consider these all administratively if they meet the special requirements. The big thing is they don't have to have the residency or the building size or locational limitations that they would if they were just an RA district as standalone uses. The last one is vicinity conditions. This is, again, the Miller Family Farm. The red outline indicates the area proposed for the AO. You'll notice that there's a lot of green shading surrounding this property. Within a half mile, there are 39 other parcels in the present use value system. A lot of people call farm use. That totals about 931 acres. There are, in this green areas, you will notice residential subdivisions north, west, and south of their property. Looking at Patterson Farms in a similar way, within a half mile there are 44 other parcels in present use value that total 1,584 acres. There are 5 residences located along Caldwell Road, just south of the property. Some residential uses on Mooresville Road to the north and to the west. But it's interesting, if you look at this, I think you would agree that there are more properties beyond the half-mile boundary that are in the present use value than not. So it's an agriculture area. Procedurally, we mailed notifications to the adjoining owners on July 21st. The property was posted before the courtesy hearing held by the planning board, and those signs are still in place. This hearing was properly advertised in the Salisbury Post, and so what you have left to do from a procedural standpoint would be to conduct a legislative hearing. The applicants here, let them speak. If not, open it up for public comment. You can develop your own statement, or you can accept that one here that the planning board has recommended here for you. So, any questions?
All right, thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Applicants here, I know I saw the Pattersons. Anything you want to add to it? Millers? No? Nothing? Okay. All right, we'll open the floor then. We're required to have a public hearing for this. So if anyone would like to speak about this change, now would be the time. Going once? Going twice? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions for you guys?
No, not really any questions, but I just think when the zoning of this originated, that these farms fit these perfectly for this zoning. And they, I'm more familiar with the Patterson farm than I am Miller property, but I know having kids from all over the state come by and to be able to see an operating farm and to see the products that they produce and to just be a great community partner. I'm just happy to see them come here and ask for this, and hopefully we'll be able to work this out.
Best chocolate milkshake I've ever had in my life, Patterson Farms. I wasn't paid to say that, but I'll accept.
But you will accept.
But I'll accept
Yeah.
a milkshake next time. No, I cannot. Well, we certainly love you guys and appreciate you. All right, let me offer up this as a motion. We'll first do a statement of consistency. Z05-25 is consistent with the West Area 1 and 2 land use plan and the working agriculture lands plan and reasonable and appropriate based on the following. First, request enhances the continued vitality of an active multi-generational farm. Second, it enables agritourism and other limited commercial use in a way that preserves the bona fide farm and promotes rural character. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, then do we have a motion then to approve Z05-25?
So moved.
All right, we got a motion, second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your work very much. And And you are required to stay for the whole meeting now, so that's not true. All right, Aaron, PE 06-25.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a permit to exceed 0625, a request from Jody Burleyson to have a permit to exceed at the Shrine Club at 6480 Long Ferry Road on August 16th from 5 to 10 p.m. Jody Burleson's running for sheriff, and he's looking to have a meet and greet from 5 to 10 p.m. on August 16th, and would like a permit to exceed for that. Included in your packet, there are 10 criteria to look at for a permit to exceed. Staff didn't see any issues with any of those criteria, but if you all had any specific questions for them, I could answer those for you. Otherwise, we just look to have public comment and answer any questions.
Anything, guys? All right, don't go far. All right, we'll open again the floor for public hearing. Anytime we're doing these permits to exceed, we open it up to public comment. In case someone sees some pitfalls there, maybe this applicant has done this before and it's terrible, it was just a disaster, and you wanted to comment about it. Probably not going to see that in these tonight. All right, hearing no one, and or seeing no one, we'll close. And commissioners, do we have motion to approve PE 06-25?
Move motion.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Jane.
All right, the next permit to exceed is from Mr. Rod Weaver, who the board's very familiar with. Y'all recall the One Love Music Festival, third annual event. This is a different request from Mr. Weaver. It's going to be the same type setup. It'll have live music. He's proposing several different bands from some artists that he's selected. It'll have food trucks there, but the location would be 4860 Patterson Road on the left-hand side of the screen at Patterson and Brown. So the event would be Saturday, September the 6th from 3 to 10. And the goal is to have support for numerous charities and give back to our community, including veterans, from the information provided. So there was actually an event this past Saturday that the board approved 6 weeks ago, and didn't hear any negative feedback on that, nor from the 24 request. On the right side of your screen here, you have the layout for the entrance and exit. You have a couple different, the setup, the speaker direction, porta-johns, washing stations there. Environmental health, Sheriff's Department has indicated no problems with the past event. I won't go through all the criteria there, but if you have any questions, just let me know. Mr. Weaver does have private security that he brings, along with whatever recommended by the Sheriff's Department. Staff sent notice to 19 landowners that own property within 500 feet of the site, posted a sign on the property, did not receive any phone calls. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Shane. All right, same here. We'll open the floor for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on permit to exceed, this would be the time. Once, twice. We'll close public comment. We have a motion to approve PE 07-25.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Aaron?
All right, we have a family subdivision waiver 0225, a request from Robert Oakley off of Burchette Drive, tax parcel 381-034. So Mr. Oakley is looking to receive a new lot off of this parcel from his aunt. That doesn't meet the definition of an immediate family member, so they have to come to the board and request a waiver to that standard. So there are 4 criteria to look at. The first one's the nature of the subdivision. This is just a one-lot subdivision. the existing land use of the vicinity. Everything else in that vicinity is generally residential. The number of persons who reside or work on the subdivision. You'd have the new lot going to Robert Oakley, and the residual lot is from his aunt, Sandra Lambert. And the last thing to consider is traffic. Burchett Drive continues back to Eller Road, which is the closest state-maintained road it gets to. That road doesn't have any traffic information, but there's less than 100 houses that access off that road. We don't anticipate the addition of one lot causing a traffic issue. Then finally, this is a conveyance of a new lot outside the definition of immediate family member, an aunt to a nephew, but all the other family subdivision lot requirements still apply. So procedurally, it's just approve, deny, or table the request.
All right, thanks. Any questions for Aaron? All right, if not, is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to say anything? You don't need to, that's fine. Okay, gotcha. All right, then we'll again open the floor for public comment and conduct a public hearing. Anyone like to speak on this for or against? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, do we have a motion to approve FSW 02-25? So moved. Second?
Second.
Yep, all in favor say aye.
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 All right. Next item, Vaya Health update. Welcome back. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Appreciate you having me out this afternoon. I've got a brief presentation to share with you, just giving a few updates about what's been going on at Vaya and just give you an overview of some of that. So I believe I have touched on this before, but just as an update, who we are at Vaya Health is a managed care organization, and we're currently operating 3 separate health plans. Our Vaya Total Care, which is our tailored care plan that is for mental health, substance use, intellectual and developmental disabilities, traumatic brain injury, physical health, pharmacy, as well as long-term services and supports, and that is under Medicaid. We also have our Medicaid Direct program, which is the more traditional plan of Medicaid that folks are more familiar with, and that is for folks that are not enrolled in managed care plans. And then our tailored plan is managing mental health, substance use, IDD, traumatic brain injury services for individuals without insurance or too little insurance. This, and I believe that is a typo there. It should say state-funded plan, not tailored plan. But anyway, that state fund, those state funds there are for folks that are either uninsured or underinsured for us to provide services for. Wanted to break down the numbers for you about who we cover here in Rowan County. So for our Medicaid Direct program, we have 5,022 people, and in our tailored plan, we have 4,353 people for a total coverage in the county of 9,375 members. We're continuing to keep our eye on General Assembly budget that we'll continue to monitor. It will definitely have an effect on us as an organization, and so we're keeping a close eye on that. What we're looking at right now, some of the key areas in the budget is no funding for our Healthy Opportunities pilot, no new innovation waiver slots, no new TBI waiver slots for proposed expansion, proposed single stream funding reduction with what is on the table. If the House version passes with 30 million statewide, that would mean a reduction in those single stream funds of about 6 million for Vaya Health. And those single stream funds is what I was talking about, the funding that is used for folks who are uninsured or underinsured. Continued monitoring for the federal budget and what that means for health, behavioral health, and social determinants of health. And then we have the go live date coming up December 1st of this year for Blue Cross Blue Shield's Child and Family Specialty Plan waiver, and that will be a Medicaid program for children and families that have been in or have been involved in the foster care program at some point. We've had some challenges with our Healthy Opportunities pilot, and the current budget proposals are taking that that program essentially out of operation. We stopped our new authorization requests on June the 6th, and we stopped our existing Healthy Opportunity pilot services on July 1. Okay, just touch on some projects and network development. So we are continuing to operate our Hope for NC grant, and this is largely in response to the Hurricane Helene, and all of the devastation. With all of the physical devastation, folks are really struggling with their mental health through all of these challenges following the hurricane. So this Hope for NC grant allows for us to provide services free of charge to anyone, regardless of their insurance, regardless of their coverage. Folks can reach out to our helpline here and can receive a number of resources, crisis recovery, public education, community networking, support, assessment, and referral. We have local team leaders and crisis counselors and community liaisons that can help with those resources. And this is just a map of our affected counties. 22 of the 25 impacted counties are Vaya Health counties. And those are the folks that we're working with our Hope for NC grant to support. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got them.
Why did you cut $6 million out of your program?
I'm sorry, 6 million?
Why did you cut $6 million out of your program?
That's the proposal that is in the state budget currently. It's not passed yet, but if the House version passes, which would be a 30 million cut statewide, that would be a 6 million hit for Vaya Health.
Questions or comments? All right, man.
Thank you so much.
Till next time.
Appreciate it.
Good to have you here. Craig Powers. So this presentation upcoming, big deal for our region. Most of you know we have second largest lake in North Carolina, High Rock Lake. It was created 100 years ago and was anticipated it would last 100 years, and here we are. And so we've got some significant issues with High Rock Lake that threatens water supply and a whole lot of stuff. And so about a year and a half ago, Rowan County and Davidson County came together to commission an engineering study on what could be done with the infill of High Rock Lake. And so after that time, this engineering firm has completed that study, and they're going to come tonight for the first time and reveal their findings in that study. And so we're glad to have them here, and glad to have our county engineer here to introduce them and tell us about it.
With us tonight is our consultants with Geosyntec. We got Brian Weir, Corey Platt, and they've been working on this project. They are experts in this field. They have done a lot of dredging studies throughout the country. So when we went out for an RFQ to select them, they kind of stood out and thought it would be beneficial to bring them on. And tonight they're going to present some options. As of right now, this is the final part of what we've hired them to do. So we'll be looking for some guidance from our commissioners to how we want to proceed forward after they present some options to you all. So, Brian.
Thank you, Craig. Hey, welcome. Yeah.
Thank you for having us today and allowing us to give you guys this presentation update on the project. We did complete our final study. We've submitted our final report and want to give you guys an update kind of on the overall study. We'll talk about the study areas, the work we've performed, the sediment sampling and survey work, our practical alternatives that we looked at to determine the best approach and route forward for the project, and discuss our conclusions, findings, and next steps. So on this figure here, these are the three major reaches of the lake that we considered as part of the study. Downstream of these reaches already have significant water depth for navigable purposes. So really we focused the study on these upper reaches in the lake. The first being the upper lake reach, shown here in purple and yellow representing the existing islands that have been caused from the sedimentation over decades of sedimentation that's occurred downriver from the Yadkin. The green reach, as you see here, we call it the Swearing Creek Reach. This extends from the upper lake reach down just south of the confluence with Swearing Creek, and includes that large shoal that has formed along the northeastern shore of the lake. And the third reach that we investigated was the mid-channel reach, shown here in orange, and that extends from the confluence of Swearing Creek down south of the confluence with Green Creek. Within those three study areas, we performed sediment sampling late last year, as well as bathymetric survey. Sediment sampling occurred at 22 different locations throughout the reaches. Some of these locations were shallow cores in the upper lake reach, really looking at the upper 3 to 4 feet of material, and we had deeper cores in the Swearing Creek and in the mid-channel reach, as well as Crane Creek, looking at deeper sediment deposits, which are more fine-grained in nature. Bathymetric survey footprint was really focused on the Swearing Creek and mid-channel reaches, and you'll notice the area in red there along that shoal. The water depth at the time of survey was too shallow even to get the boat over top of the shoal. So we used some publicly available data in that area to estimate water depths and elevations for quantification purposes. The next step in our process was to determine what volume of material is accumulated in these reaches. These photos represent the Swearing Creek Reach. We looked at two different elevations for the dredge to dig to. Those are elevations 617 and 615 in the North American Vertical Datum of 1988, which is different than the lake datum, but a very common datum used in dredging projects. These two elevations, 617 represents restoring navigable water depth in these areas. It would not be a complete removal of sediment that's accumulated here, but a partial removal. That's indicated on the photo on the left. The photo in the center represents elevation 615. You'll see there's a larger footprint for dredging and a larger volume of material. So in the end, the quantification shows we have about 1.6 million to 2.8 million cubic yards of material. To visualize this, that volume of material would represent, if you went over to Bell Tower Green and took that one city block, it would stack as high as a 40-foot skyscraper in that area. So it's a pretty significant volume of sediment. So moving into our practical alternatives, we want to look at a number of different factors to determine what's the best path forward for the project. First being which dredging methodology do you want to use. Hydraulic dredging, represented in the photos here on the left, you can think of this as more like vacuuming up the bottom of the lake. The dredge would have a cutter suction head, loosens and agitates the material on the bottom, creates a slurry, which is then pumped via pipeline, shown in the pictures there on the bottom, to an area where it would then be dewatered, and from there it could be excavated and reused. Mechanical dredging is your more typical type of dredging you see using excavators and clamshell buckets and barges. Think of this as kind of one scoop at a time. Material will be placed into a barge, transported to shoreline, then offloaded to another area where it would be allowed to further dewater before it could be reused.
How are the hydraulic, how's the hydraulic, how is it guided? Are there divers or?
No, so the photo you see in the upper left, that's the actual dredge itself. So it's self-powered, usually by a diesel engine. And what you see on the front there, the cutter suction, and I don't know if I can use the cursor here to show you. This would be the cutter suction head here. That would be lowered down to the mud line beneath the water, and it basically spins. And as it spins, they dig into the material, agitates and creates that slurry, and then just behind that, there's a pump that then would then pump it. You can't see on this dredge, but back here is a pipeline similar to this that connects to the back, and you're basically just suctioning that material through the pipeline.
Are they operating off a radar?
They typically use survey equipment, so you're talking RTK and GNSS positioning, basically GPS positioning. There's usually a specialty software program called HiPAC. That program uses the design files that you would create in an AutoCAD program to guide the dredger. They can see their position, they can see their elevation, and work accurately to typically within 6 inches accuracy. So once you dredge the material, we have to look at how are we going to dewater and process the material. And we looked at a number of different options here, geotubes, dewatering basins, geopools. Photos on the upper left are geotubes. These are a geotextile fabric tube. The material is pumped in through these series of pipelines you see here. And the water is allowed to come back out of those bags, but the sediment remains inside. So after you've completed the project, those usually sit for a little while. They get dewatered. The material becomes nice and dry inside. You cut them open, excavate them out, and then you can reuse that material. The geopool is very similar to the geotubes. It's just a metal structure with that geotextile fabric on the inside. Runs through the same technology. The water is allowed to flow through the fabric while the sediment remains inside. You let it sit for a period of time to dry out, and then you can excavate it manually with an excavator as shown in that photo. The other option we considered was dewatering basins. That's the one shown in gray. It's a very typical setup for a dredging project. They're usually constructed with earthen berms. Material will be pumped in, allowed to run through a series of baffles, as you can see here in the middle. It basically creates the retention time for that slurry for the soil, the sediment to fall out, and you would have clean water for discharge at the end of the basin. So these other options are filter presses at the top and bucket mixing on the bottom. These usually require an additive, so we didn't really consider those as part of the study, but they're just other options that in the early phases of the project we looked at.
And what's left over with the geotube or the geopool, is that sold?
So the geotubes would be disposed of at a landfill. That does create a decent amount of waste. The bags are not reusable because you cut them open with an excavator and just dig the material out. The geopools are reusable. So those structures could be, at the end of the project, they would either be owned by the contractor who would just demobilize the equipment from the site, or if owned by the county, those are something that could be sold.
I'm talking about the product.
Oh, I'm sorry, the product. Yes, the product is resellable. We actually worked on the first ever project using a geopool for dredge sediment for a municipality in Ohio. And they actually just excavated their first series of pools. They're able to sell that material as topsoil. So they actually have purchased a topsoil bagging operation, and they're selling it as topsoil to the local community.
You'll make your recommendation, but part of the problem is, I don't know where the adjuvant originates, but I know it runs through Virginia and wheat, right?
I believe it starts in northern North Carolina towards the Boone area.
Part part of our problem is we're the first of several lakes on this chain. Being the first, we get the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And coming down from where it comes through a lot of agriculture area, so it's carrying topsoil in a lot of cases. So you want to, and maybe you'll do this and just say, no, I'll talk about it later. Do you want to talk about the composition of what you found?
Sure. So we did, as part of our sediment sampling, we did send off samples for agricultural evaluations, looking at the nutrients that are in those soils that would come from agricultural runoff. And the levels would require, if you were to dredge the material, dewater it, and use it in an agricultural setting, it would require some amendment in some cases, depending on where the material came from. The upper lake sediments, as I mentioned, were more sandy material, so they're
Makes sense.
very clean, not a lot of fines in it. The materials in the Swearing Creek and mid-channel reaches are very fine grains. You're talking a lot of clay and silt, red Carolina clay. Those, depending on their location, would require like a nitrogen amendment. But it is, additional soil. I know there's a epidemic of farmers losing topsoil, right? So it could be a topsoil equivalent that would need a slight amendment to be reused. So managing this volume of material obviously would require a parcel of land. We did a desktop land assessment looking around the lake for sites that would be suitable for what we would call a dredge material management area, or a DMMA. So we identified a number of sites around the lake. These sites had to be a minimum of 6 acres in size, just from basically a size standpoint to manage that amount of material. We looked at the site topography. Or any of these sites have significant slopes that would require a large volume of grading to get it flat enough to use as a facility. We looked at access to main roads for transport of the material after the dewatering process. How easy would it be to transport it out if you're trying to move that material off site? And we also looked at, obviously, waterside access first. We did consider some parcels that were not waterfront, but did have a good corridor for either a pipeline or transport of that sediment from the water to the site. In discussing this with engineering, the photo here in the middle and on the right are a Rowan County parcel 606004, currently owned by Cube Hydro, but as we understand has a future use for Rowan County as a potential park. So we have identified that site, being that it's right adjacent to Swearing Creek. You'll notice here it's right here next to our reaches where we're talking about dredging. So it makes it a very ideal location for development of DMMA. Another option we looked at, just due to the sedimentation that's occurring in the upper lake reach and the channelizing of the lake through these channels on the east and west shores, was in-water material relocation. In our report, we called this lake dead space or island backfill, just an easier term to use as in-water material relocation. So what we do is hydraulically move this material from the dredge, pump it into this area shown in the brown polygon. To start that, you would create a berm on the southern end, obviously, to retain that material. And based on the volume of material pumped, you would either have, in the end, either a restored wetland in that area or even build it up to where it's the same elevation as the existing island. So we're just taking the sediment from one portion of the lake, relocating it within the lake footprint. The advantage to this is it's basically a one-time move. Every time you touch dredge material, you basically double the cost. So your cost per cubic yard is going to go up if you do, for example, mechanical dredging to a barge, to the shoreline, off the barge, up to another facility, and then off-site. There's 4 different touches in there. So with that, you end up with, a pretty significant increase in cost versus an option like this. So in the end, we came up with what we call the practical alternatives matrix. This represents 5 different alternatives. 2 or 3 of these, I apologize, have sub-alternatives. But these were the main alternatives that we looked at as being feasible for dredging High Rock Lake. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on those on the next slide. But you can see that these take into account the dredging method, the material transport, the dewatering options, whether or not some of that material can be left on site. This would just help with from a funding perspective, in which parcel would be used for the DMMA. So in the end, scenario A, C, and D of those 3 are the most feasible for High Rock Lake. A being the in-water material relocation. Again, this would be hydraulic dredging placed in those island areas to expand those and kind of open up the navigable water depths throughout the lake reaches. Scenarios C and D are both very similar. They would require that upland DMMA at the Cube Hydro property. The geotubes have a little bit of an advantage there in that they are stackable. So you can kind of scale the size of your facility based on how much material you're pumping. The geopools offer their own advantage in that they're scalable and they're long-term infrastructure. Obviously moving 1.6 to 2.8 million cubic yards of mud is not going to take a very short period of time. It'll be a fairly lengthy period of time to move that amount of material, probably multiple years of dredging. But with that, the geopools do offer that long-term infrastructure that in the end could be resold to reduce the overall project cost.
Sounds like scenario A is the quicker.
Likely, yes, because it's a single handle, pumping the material, allowing it to dry, and just basically waiting on Mother Nature to do its job.
Is that the most beneficial to the citizens of Rowan County?
It depends. In the end, when you're talking 2 million cubic yards of material, that's a very large volume of material to dewater and manage after dewatering. So if you're talking 2 million yards that we would pump dewater to a site, that's 2 million yards of material you want to move off-site. So you talk about the amount of truck trips that you would have in that. You know, you're talking pretty significant impact on air pollution, depending on your site location, the condition of the roads. You'd be looking at impacts on the roads there. They probably need a repaving in the end. So yes, I would say that it's likely more advantageous for option A than it would be for the others. So we advanced these 5 options to give you an overall idea of what this could cost. We did class 4 AACE cost estimates on these. These take into account factors such as mobilization and demobilization of equipment, the cost of dredging operations, setting up a DMMA site for the upland options, setting up the improvements for scenario A of building that berm, what that would take. And the overall range, I believe option A is about 15 million to about 57 million, depending on the volume of material that's moved, ranging to the highest cost obviously being option C1. That ranges from about 50 million to about 160 million, again, depending on the volume of material used. The bar and whisker plot here represents the bars being the actual cost estimate for that option with a contingency of -30 to +50, or what the whiskers represent. So our report, we recommend moving forward with alternative A, just because it is the most cost effective. It's a single touch. The one issue with this is it is potentially the most challenging from a permitting perspective. We are talking about moving material within the lake. We would have to have discussions with the Army Corps and understand what their requirements would be for studies to advance that alternative. Second to that, obviously, we would recommend option C and D with the upland facility, and then depending on the volume of material, would determine which of those dewatering technologies we would move forward with. So on to the next steps. Obviously, the next steps would be to select the preferred alternative. As we mentioned, scenario A is our recommendation. We did have a call, I believe, back in April with some of the commissioners here in Davidson County, and it sounded like scenario A really was the preferred alternative. Once we know which scenario we would move forward with, we would start having those permitting discussions with the Corps and the state, and also with Cube Hydro. We did have a meeting with Cube last May. They seemed very amenable to the project. Currently, their permitting process does not allow for dredging, but they said they would make an exception for this project. Excuse me. The Corps obviously would be the most important in understanding what additional studies they would like to see to accompany the permitting package to allow the project to move forward with alternative. In the meantime, while those discussions will be ongoing, we would obviously be trying to look for funding opportunities. There are grants and alternative funding sources for municipalities that could potentially fund the project. Probably would be unlikely to receive a grant for the full dollar value of the project, depending on the volume of material we decide to tackle. So one thing we would probably propose is, depending on how we find, or if we can find funding sources to get close to the whole project funding amount, we would break it up into phases, right? We could tackle problems such as the Swearing Creek Shoal deepening that channel and removing that sediment accumulation that has occurred there first, and work our way around the lake as additional funding. That's all. I'll take any questions you guys have. When I met with Army Corps, they were hesitant at the option of creating an island. When we spoke to y'all, and you here have said it again, that probably has the most permitting challenges. But this is the first time you've done this. You guys do this not just across the U.S. Don't you do it around the world? Mostly within the U.S. Yeah. So this wouldn't be the first time you've done this. Correct. Certainly not the first time you've worked with Army Corps. So could you talk a little bit about that and maybe some experience you had relative to what we would be asking you to do? Sure. Would you answer that question? Sure. A little bit more experience in the permitting realm.
Hi, Corey Platt, co-author of the study. It would be, a challenge, but
Can you repeat that? I didn't.
the permitting side would be, a uphill challenge. But with the amount of material that is there, right, the 2 million yards, we felt that it warrants, due to the cost, that it warrants giving it a dedicated discussion, right, with the agencies because of the cost differential. There is a possibility that, as we go through this next step, that it's actually a blend, right? That some of the material can go and, be beneficially used for habitat and such in the island area, and then another portion be used in, geopools or geotubes for upland reuse to kind of balance out the overall cost, but still use a single technology of a hydraulic dredge. But those are ways to reduce the cost and balance the permitting and timeline. If cost was not an issue and you wanted to do it fast, then we would not recommend the alternative that is being presented. We would recommend one that is extremely costly and may also include damaging of roads and secondary impacts, right? The traffic, and somewhere we have to put 2 million yards, which means you're creating a mountain. So we tried to find a balance and, to wisely use the county's funds for, for the next steps.
Did y'all explain it? If you could go back to that slide of that, what you call it, kind of the dead area, north. Yeah. So what you explained to us earlier is there's no, in that brown area, there's no water move. We're not changing any hydrology. That's just sitting there, isn't it?
Yes, that's, we consider that area to be relatively hydraulically cut off. It still receives water, but it's a backwater area. Likely is not supporting, submerged aquatic vegetation or any sort of ecological habitat. There's potential for bird habitat along the shorelines, but from a, supporting aquatic habitat, it's very, yeah. During our study, we tried to float in there. We got stuck.
So it's 270 acres, and so if you were, let's just imagine that Army Corps went along with this, how far would that raise the level of that area?
It's on average at 2.8 million yards, it'd be about a 4 to 5 foot rise across that area.
Out of the water?
Yes. Yes, you would probably be about, depending on the area within there. Some areas a little bit deeper, you could be anywhere from a foot to 3, 4 feet out of the water.
And all this would be answered in a further study on that, but, for our purposes tonight, we do have, across the whole country, it seems recently, we have water. Salisbury itself is working with an issue of their intake is for 55,000 customers on the water line. They have flooding events there, so they're trying to relocate that intake. But how would we know that after placing this and doing what you do from an engineering standpoint, that this doesn't just get wiped out and then create even a bigger?
So the advantage to backfilling this area is that you already have the kind of, we'll say, backstop of the islands that have already formed. So you're kind of backfilling around the backside where you don't have hydraulic flow, right, from the river coming down. So in a storm event, your flow in this area is very channelized, both to the east and west side. So really, that berm would be designed and built to withstand any sort of backwater eddying that may occur within that area. But your major flows are kind of coming past that area and not flowing up into it with a lot of force.
All right. What if we had the go-ahead from Army Corps and we had a funding partner that was identified? What's the time frame once construction? Well, once you have the go-ahead, so you have to create facilities and all this. What's the time to finish a project like this, do you think? And I know we're talking about 1.6 to 2.8. That's an 80% increase. So.
Probably, what's that? Multiple years, I think, to get to construction. You could probably be to construction within, with design and permitting, probably likely at least a year, depending on the bidding process and the time of year, contractor availability to perform the work. And you're probably looking at, again, just off the cuff, could continuously dredge throughout the year, probably close to 2 years water work.
So a year,
probably about
year design, a
about 3
year,
years.
year design, 2 years to do the project. That's after the permit.
Correct. The permitting really is, we've had projects where studies have to be performed during certain seasons. So you kind of have, you'll have walls in the middle of a design permit process of waiting on the time frame of the year when they want to see that study performed, so it can be incorporated in the permit package.
Off the top of your head, do you know when the prime time would be? Have we passed it? Are we approaching it?
Usually the surveys are spring and fall. So we're approaching end of season, typically late September, early October is about the end of the study, fall last.
So what's next?
I guess to move
To
forward.
engage with you all to ask you to spearhead the permitting for us?
Yeah.
And then them tell you what the studies
Yes.
need to be?
Yes, it would be outreach to the agencies to understand the permitting requirements, and then from option feasible? Will they allow it to be permitted? From there, obviously, if it's not, we could pivot to a different alternative, or if they will allow it to be permitted.
You know, I've got a cup, and my last question. You know, a lot of folks may be thinking, why are we talking about this? In 2001, there was an exhaustive study that was done. You have a copy of it. I've read every page of it. And there's a lot of reasons to be concerned. If you're a Rowan County resident, a Davidson County resident, could you talk just lastly a little bit about that? This isn't just because someone lost their waterfront boat access. There's a lot of issues at play here that, I mean, there are some recreation issues, there's a lot of that, but didn't prepare you to talk about that, but is that something you could talk about? Because I know you've read the 2000 study. In fact, I gave the Army Corps and you know, I had a couple of organizations, Diener and those folks here, and they were not aware of how drastic this was. And I wish we had some overheads. I know you showed one, but how bad it's getting.
Yeah.
So could you talk off the cuff about what issues this lake is facing that creates real issues for the whole region?
I mean, obviously, this stems from the growth in the area. The dam is 100 years old, not just in the area, but the overall Yadkin River watershed. Obviously, all of the upstream development has caused sedimentation issues. This is 100 years worth of sedimentation that's occurred. These sedimentation issues lead to water quality problems, fish kills. You know, I know the city of Salisbury uses the river upstream as its intake. Obviously, the sedimentation occurs further and further back upstream. It causes further and further downstream. You know, I know that Swearing Creek itself is getting pretty close to being cut off from a navigable waterway, which obviously this lake is used very much so for recreational purposes. I assume it's likely to be an economic impact for the county itself. Using that, having folks not want to be in the lake anymore, obviously.
Remember saying to Army Corps, if this was Lake Norman that we were discussing, every legislator in Raleigh would be rallying around something like that. And so we're the second largest lake, and we're demanding the same action and the same attention from Raleigh, because this is a big deal for Rowan and Davidson County, and it pours down through to the lake after lake after lake, Baden and all of those as well. Creates big issues for us.
Well, and High Rock takes brunt of it, obviously, as being the first lake in the chain. So, where they get a little bit of sediment. I mean, just in our time working on the project, I know there's some recent areas back in January when the lake level was really low, and even just in our year working on this, you can see that there's been an increase in that sedimentation. So, I wouldn't expect that it would get any better.
I'd just like to bring up, one of the things we did early on was to help to support a grant application to the Department of Emergency Management under the auspices of, as the accumulation continues to grow, right, there are potential flooding impacts upstream, right? So as the Swearing Creek, which affects more on the Davidson County resident side, as that continues to grow, it basically cuts that off or puts a speed bump, right, for the floodwaters that have to, go around and go up and over there is also more for the Rowan County side. There is a growing accumulation at the mouth of Crane Creek. So what you see now at Swearing Creek is coming soon. You know, so there is that side, and as it, you know, it's just going to keep going, right? So it'll continue to grow as it has over the past 100 years, right? Yes, there are improvements for erosion control and such in upstream areas, right? But every sediment loss from a construction site comes here, and this is where you're dealing with it. And that, you know, that really depends on how diligent all the other counties are that are upstream of you are to their erosion control or, you know, agricultural runoff controls. So it isn't by putting your proverbial head in the sand, right? It is not going to fix itself.
All right, we'll see you soon. I don't know if you have plans with Davidson County, if they want to have you come speak. I know in October we'll meet again in Lexington at the High Rock Lake Association annual meeting. They're obviously very interested in what you have. Yeah.
We're available if they'd like to hear from us.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, lastly, we have board appointments. We just have one board appointment, and that is for Rowan County Rescue Squad. I did get a call from one of the applicants asking me to favor them on this, so I appreciate them reaching out. So we have two applicants. I'd like to nominate Meredith Smith for, so this rescue squad position used to be one of our county commissioners was always on that board. Mike Caskey was our representative, but there were some law changes that said we couldn't be on certain boards anymore, and so that seat has been vacant. So at our last meeting, we changed it so that that typically county commissioner board seat is now a at-large seat, and so it opened it up for some other folks. So nominate Meredith Smith for that position.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We have no closed session. What do we have here? Do we have another one? Yep. I'm on it. Thank you. We have another home and community care block grant advisory committee. Let's see. We have one. So we have five openings for that and 5 applicants. Okay, then let me read these then. Heather Kinsel, she's the seat name, so these are by seat, Ruffey Home Senior Center. Micah Ennis, Rowan County DSS seat. Beth Huber, Trinity Living Center seat. Valerie Steele, Rowan Transit System seat. And Alexandra Fisher, Meals on Wheels Rowan seat. So do we have a motion to approve those 5?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we need to call Commissioner Pierce to adjourn?
No,
Or can
I'll
you
take
do it?
his place.
All right.
Make a motion that we adjourn?
He's delegated that to you?
Yes, he did.
All right.
I've got a letter of proof.
And did you do training for that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, good. Second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Y'all be safe. Have a great week. Thank you.